You had better not make a massive scene today, Harper, because today is strictly Lena's big day, absolutely not your son's, so do not even think about embarrassing us. My mother's highly toxic voice violently sliced straight through the thick morning air exactly as I proudly placed my hardworking son's high school graduation cap perfectly onto his head. Then my arrogant brother, standing there with his arms smugly folded across his chest, loudly added, "Just relax, Mom, it is absolutely not like her kid is really that special anyway." And honestly, that was the exact defining moment when something incredibly deep inside me violently cracked wide open. Hi, my name is Harper Wynn. I am 37 years old, a dedicated single mom, and apparently I am my toxic family's designated permanent scapegoat. My amazing son, Ethan, had literally just graduated with top academic honors, officially making him the absolute first person in our entire bloodline to actually achieve such a massive milestone. But you would absolutely never know that impressive fact based on the incredibly disrespectful way everyone in our blood family actively treated us that specific day. According to their entirely warped reality, the entire universe completely revolved exclusively around my golden child niece, Lena, who is my arrogant brother's daughter, and the specific golden girl who supposedly deserved absolutely every single spotlight, just exactly as my biased parents constantly loved to loudly remind everyone. The beautiful afternoon sun was incredibly warm, and the massive school auditorium was aggressively buzzing with highly excited families, bright camera flashes, and incredibly proud cheers echoing absolutely everywhere, except exactly where we quietly stood. My toxic parents aggressively pretended to not even see the prestigious golden honor cords proudly draped over Ethan's graduation robe. They deliberately pretended not to hear his name being loudly called over the loudspeaker. They essentially pretended he absolutely didn't even exist unless his mere presence was somehow highly convenient for their perfect family image. Exactly when Ethan confidently walked right across the main stage to accept his diploma, my tight throat instantly swelled with massive emotion. I immediately started clapping incredibly loudly and fiercely proudly for my boy, but my mother aggressively lunged forward, violently grabbed my wrist and viciously hissed, "Stop doing that right now! Lena goes up on stage next, so do not you dare try to steal her thunder." I just blindly stared at her, completely stunned by her sheer audacity. But the absolute worst part was, as Ethan clearly heard her say it too, his bright, proud smile instantly faltered, and seeing his heart break right on that stage hurt me significantly more than absolutely anything else in the world possibly could. Right after the long ceremony officially ended, while absolutely all the other normal families happily hugged and warmly celebrated their children, my toxic parents immediately rushed right past us to physically shower Lena with massive balloon bouquets, expensive exotic flowers, and a highly expensive professional photographer they had specifically hired strictly for her. Ethan just quietly stood right beside me, tightly holding a single, cheap flower that he had literally bought entirely for himself using his own allowance, simply because he felt like it was the right thing to do. Then my arrogant brother smoothly approached us, proudly wearing that exact same highly smug grin plastered across his face. Do not be so incredibly dramatic about this, Harper, because literally every single family naturally has a bright star, and yours just simply isn't him. I actively felt my son physically shift uncomfortably right beside me, suddenly looking incredibly stiff, entirely too small, and deeply, profoundly wounded by his own uncle's vicious words. I instantly opened my mouth to aggressively defend my amazing son, but my toxic mother quickly cut right in, sharply snapping, "Do not even start this drama right now. Harper, we explicitly told you not to completely overshadow Lena today, so let us just aggressively keep this day somewhat pleasant." Something incredibly freezing and dead cold instantly spread straight through the center of my chest. Then Ethan quietly leaned in and desperately whispered, "Mom, can we please just go home now?" I slowly turned to look at my broken boy, and that is exactly the precise second I finally made a massive life-altering decision that would permanently change absolutely everything for our entire family tree. But before I tell you exactly how I completely dismantled their arrogant little world, make sure you smash that subscribe button right now if you absolutely love seeing toxic families get the exact heavy karma they deserve. Ethan quietly sat in the passenger seat of my car on the quiet drive home, blankly staring silently right out the window exactly as the massive high school campus slowly shrank into the distance right behind us. His golden graduation tassel sadly dangled from his nervous fingers, twisting incredibly slowly, exactly like he was desperately trying to mathematically make sense of the deeply humiliating day he just endured. "Mom, did I actually do something wrong to them?" His trembling voice was incredibly small, far too heartbreakingly small for a brilliant young boy who had quite literally just graduated with top academic honors. My broken heart violently clenched inside my chest. "No, sweetheart, you absolutely did everything entirely right today. They are the exact ones who massively failed you." But honestly, even exactly as I said the comforting words out loud, a highly familiar, suffocating heaviness forcefully pressed right against my tight chest. It was the exact same crushing emotional weight I had forcefully carried alone my entire miserable life. My toxic parents had absolutely always aggressively played favorites with their children. My arrogant brother Daniel was explicitly the undisputed golden child of the house. His daughter Lena seamlessly inherited that exact same blinding golden glow without lifting a single finger. And my Ethan, my incredibly sweet, fiercely hardworking boy, to them he was nothing more than a passing shadow, an annoying afterthought that barely registered on their radar. I desperately tried to blindly ignore their toxic behavior for entirely too many years. I tried to constantly gaslight myself and actively tell myself that the blatant favoritism was entirely just in my paranoid head. But deeply down inside my soul, I always clearly knew the brutal truth. Genuine love in my toxic family was absolutely never freely given without strings attached. It was highly rationed out exactly like scarce water in a desert, and unfortunately some of us were just completely destined to always be starving for a single drop. The exact second we finally got back to our quiet house, Ethan immediately went straight into his small bedroom without saying a word. I quietly followed him a brief moment later and found him sitting heavily on the very edge of his mattress, blindly staring down at his hard-earned diploma in his lap. He quietly whispered, "I genuinely thought they would finally be proud of me this time." That one specific, highly devastating sentence completely broke my absolute soul into a million pieces. I sat right down beside him and hugged him tight. "I am incredibly proud of you, Ethan. I am fiercely proud enough to easily cover for absolutely every single toxic person who completely failed you today." He slowly nodded his head, but his sad eyes heavily glistened with unshed tears in a specific way that explicitly told me my comforting words absolutely weren't enough to magically erase the massive psychological wound they had inflicted. Not this time. Hours later, right after he finally cried himself to sleep, I sat entirely alone in the pitch-dark living room, obsessively replaying absolutely every single horrific moment from the graduation ceremony on a loop. The incredibly fake plastic smiles, the vicious underhanded comments, the aggressive wrist grab, the absolute blatant dismissal of my son's entire existence. Honestly, this toxic behavior absolutely wasn't anything new for them. This was simply the ultimate, unforgivable final straw that broke the camel's back. I vividly remembered absolutely all of the childhood birthdays they completely ignored over the years. The countless holidays where Daniel's spoiled kids aggressively tore through massive piles of expensive gifts, while Ethan pathetically received absolutely nothing more than a highly forced, fake smile and a cheap card. The countless times my toxic parents actively dismissed Ethan's massive academic achievements simply because they claimed Lena desperately needed more constant encouragement because she was supposedly highly sensitive. I had forcefully swallowed absolutely every single painful insult for decades, strictly for the pathetic sake of aggressively keeping the fake family piece together. But today I was forced to literally watch my own son actively shrink and wither directly under their coordinated cruelty. And I finally realized something incredibly profound. Actively staying in this highly toxic family dynamic was currently hurting my son significantly more than completely cutting all ties ever possibly could. Right as midnight slowly approached, my cell phone violently buzzed on the coffee table. A brand new family group chat message aggressively popped right up on the glowing screen. "Tomorrow evening we are hosting a highly special, expensive dinner strictly for Lena's amazing graduation. Do not even think about bringing Ethan with you. It is exclusively her special moment." Eyes blankly stared directly at the glowing screen and a remarkably slow, entirely icy calm smoothly washed straight over my entire body. I literally stared at that highly offensive group chat message for 10 solid minutes, the harsh blue glow of my phone brightly washing completely over my shaking hands. Do not bring Ethan, it is her moment. The sheer, unadulterated audacity of that statement absolutely didn't even shock me anymore at this point. It just completely thoroughly exhausted me to my very core. But right beneath that heavy exhaustion, something significantly darker actively stirred to life, something infinitely sharper and ready for war. The very next morning, Ethan quietly came into the bright kitchen wearing an incredibly hopeful, highly vulnerable smile on his face. Grandma explicitly said there is a massive family dinner happening tonight. Should I go ahead and dress nice for it? Oh my God, he absolutely still foolishly believed they might actually change their toxic ways. He genuinely still believed they might finally actively see him and validate him. I violently swallowed the heavy, acidic burn in my tight throat and slowly shook my head. No, my sweet boy, we are absolutely not going to that dinner. He instantly went completely still in his tracks. Is it specifically because of what happened yesterday? Because of absolutely everything? I quietly said yes, gently brushing his hair right back off his forehead. He sadly looked straight down at the kitchen countertop, nervously tracing invisible circles with his fingertip. Mom, they literally act like I am absolutely not even a real part of this family. That was exactly it. That was the specific, highly devastating sentence that permanently carved itself straight into my spine exactly like a razor-sharp blade. I instantly pulled him tight into my protective arms, but my rapidly racing mind was absolutely already massively shifting, heavy gears aggressively turning, and the final puzzle pieces flawlessly falling right into their proper place. There absolutely had to be a concrete, permanent way to legally protect him from their abuse and to forcefully make them finally see exactly what they had permanently lost by throwing us under the bus. Later that exact same afternoon, Daniel arrogantly called my phone, absolutely not to kindly ask how Ethan was doing, and certainly not to offer a genuine apology for his horrific behavior. No, he explicitly called strictly to arrogantly remind me of my supposed place in the family hierarchy. Mom explicitly wants you to at least drop by the restaurant with a card or an expensive gift or something for Lena tonight. Do not make this entire situation awkward for everyone. I actually laughed out loud, an incredibly genuine, deeply bitter laugh. He absolutely didn't like hearing that sound at all. What exactly is so damn funny? He viciously snapped into the phone. You, I simply stated with zero emotion. Absolutely all of you are a massive joke. There was a highly tense pause on the line. Then his tone violently dropped right back into that highly condescending, arrogant tone he had perfectly mastered ever since our childhood. You are completely overreacting about this, Harper. Ethan absolutely isn't even. I violently cut him off before he could finish. Do not you ever dare try to finish that toxic sentence. Whatever, he aggressively muttered. Just do not completely ruin tonight for everyone else. When he finally hung up the phone in a huff, I actively realized something incredibly chilling about their psychology. They truly, genuinely believed that I would simply keep bending backwards for them forever. They fully believed that I would magically show up, silently swallow their blatant disrespect, cheerfully hand over an expensive gift, and completely stand quietly in the dark corner while their highly precious golden child happily basked in all the unearned attention. But absolutely not this time. Instead, I calmly opened my laptop on the kitchen table. I quickly pulled up a highly specific email draft I had initially started typing months ago, something I honestly never had the actual courage to fully send before today. It was a massive removal letter, an absolute truth bomb, and a heavy iron door violently closing with total finality. My trembling fingers aggressively hovered right over the keyboard, exactly when Ethan suddenly stepped right into the room, nervously holding something hidden directly behind his back. "Mom," he quietly whispered, "can I please show you something?" His trembling voice clearly indicated that something was horribly wrong. Ethan slowly stepped forward, tightly clutching something right behind his back exactly like he wasn't entirely sure if he should actually show it to me. His young shoulders were incredibly tense, and his eyes were highly glossy with unshed tears. It was the exact heartbreaking look of a sweet boy desperately trying to be strong and entirely failing. "What exactly is it, sweetheart?" I asked incredibly gently. He heavily swallowed the lump in his throat and then slowly extended his shaking hand. It was a card, a highly specific high school graduation card, but it absolutely wasn't for my toxic family. No, it was explicitly returned to him. The white envelope was heavily creased and torn slightly right on one edge. My own mother's highly recognizable handwriting was aggressively scrawled directly across the front of it. "Leave this for Lena. She deserves it significantly more," Ethan painfully whispered out loud. "I genuinely tried to give it to Grandpa yesterday at the ceremony. He explicitly told me to just give it directly to my cousin instead. My heart absolutely didn't just break in that moment. It entirely, violently detonated exactly like a massive nuclear bomb. Did he explicitly say anything else to you? I asked, forcefully keeping my shaky voice as perfectly steady as humanly possible. Ethan slowly nodded his head. He arrogantly told me that some kids just naturally shine much brighter in life, and that it is perfectly okay to accept that. He slowly looked right up at me with a violently trembling, pathetic smile. I guess I'm just absolutely not a very bright kid, Mom. That was the exact moment, the ultimate humiliation, the massive, unforgivable betrayal, the exact one that didn't just happen to me, but violently happened to the absolute only human being on earth who ever truly mattered to me. I immediately sank right down to my knees on the floor and tightly cupped his tear-stained face in my hands. Ethan, you absolutely shine significantly brighter than every single one of them completely combined. They actively just maliciously refuse to see it because they are entirely blind. He loudly sniffed, quickly wiping a stray tear off his cheek. I really do not want to ever go to that dinner tonight. I absolutely do not want them to say anything else cruel about me. You are absolutely not going anywhere near them, I firmly stated with pure venom. Not tonight and absolutely not ever again. That specific evening, exactly while my highly toxic family gathered at an incredibly fancy restaurant across town, aggressively posting endless social media photos of Lena smugly holding massive bouquets and posing with her unearned diploma, I sat peacefully beside Ethan on our comfortable couch. We watched a great movie together. We ordered his favorite pizza. We genuinely laughed out loud. For the absolute first time in my entire adult life, I actively felt genuine peace in my soul. A freezing cold, highly decisive, and permanent peace. But then my cell phone predictably started buzzing absolutely non-stop on the table. First, it was Mom texting, "Where exactly are you right now? You absolutely should at least show your face here to keep up appearances." Then, Daniel aggressively texted, "Do not actively make this into a dramatic situation, Harper. Just show up right now. Absolutely, no one cares about Ethan's feelings right now anyway." Then, Mom aggressively texted again, "If you honestly want him to be honored so badly today, you really should have raised a significantly more remarkable child." That was exactly it. That was the absolute final line that completely burned the entire remaining bridge straight to the ground. I confidently stood right up, aggressively grabbed my laptop, and immediately opened that unsent email draft right back up. But this specific time, something entirely new permanently crystallized right inside my chest. It absolutely wasn't just blind anger, and it wasn't just deep emotional hurt. It was a highly calculated plan. A very, very cold and perfectly calm plan. I quietly whispered, "Ethan, I promise you, they are absolutely never going to ever hurt you again." And exactly while he looked right at me with deep confusion, I finally aggressively started typing on the keyboard. I typed incredibly slowly at first, ensuring every single keystroke was perfectly steady, highly deliberate and legally sharp. I absolutely wasn't rage-filled at all, because blind rage actively clouds your logical judgment. What I deeply felt was pure clarity, an absolute stillness perfectly sharpened right into a lethal purpose. For entire decades, I foolishly tolerated their massive cruelty strictly because I naively believed that blood family meant something incredibly sacred, something absolutely worth preserving at all costs. But right now, right in this very moment, I clearly saw the brutal truth. They absolutely weren't a real family. They were a highly toxic system, an abusive system that explicitly fed heavily on blatant favoritism, aggressive guilt-tripping, and total psychological control. And exactly like any completely broken system, it could absolutely be permanently dismantled from the inside out. Ethan quietly sat right beside me, half passively watching the television movie and half intensely watching me type. "What exactly are you doing right now, Mom?" he asked, incredibly softly. I slowly closed my laptop screen for a brief moment. "I am officially making absolutely sure that your bright future never, ever looks exactly like your painful past." He absolutely didn't fully understand the weight of that statement. Not quite yet anyway. But he completely trusted me, and that was absolutely more than enough. I confidently opened the laptop screen right back up and rapidly began drafting something significantly more legally powerful than a simple, emotional goodbye message. I formally wrote an ironclad removal letter, declaring a full, permanent severance emotionally, strictly financially, heavily legally, creating an absolute clean break from their toxicity. First, I aggressively addressed my toxic parents directly in the text. Effective immediately, Ethan and I will absolutely no longer participate in a single family gathering, holiday celebration, or open communication of any kind. Your horrific treatment of him has completely crossed every single acceptable line of basic human decency and actual parenting. Then I intentionally added the highly specific parts that I knew would deeply sting their egos, absolutely not out of childish pettiness, but out of pure, unadulterated truth. Your blatant golden child favoritism is incredibly toxic. You have severely harmed your very own biological grandson strictly for the pathetic sake of aggressively preserving a fake family hierarchy that absolutely never even existed completely outside of your own delusional imagination. Then came my arrogant brother Daniel's specific portion of the email. I explicitly detailed absolutely every single moment he had violently belittled Ethan in public. Every single time he deliberately weaponized Lena's minor achievements just to aggressively undermine my son's massive wins, every single snide passing remark, and every single cruel dismissal. And I powerfully ended his section with, "You desperately wanted the absolute entire spotlight strictly on your daughter. Well, you can officially have it all. But from this exact moment forward, you will absolutely never actively share a room, a dinner table, or even a single breath of air with my son ever again." But I absolutely wasn't done yet, not even remotely close to being finished. Next, I confidently opened my secure bank's online portal, specifically targeting the massive savings accounts I had quietly built up for years. My highly arrogant parents genuinely believed that I was entirely financially dependent on their goodwill, and that I desperately needed their financial approval just to stay afloat. They had absolutely no idea exactly how incredibly wrong they were about my wealth. I rapidly began transferring massive funds directly into a brand new, highly private offshore account exclusively under my name only. The absolute final step was executing a massive total withdrawal directly from the shared family emergency fund I had generously opened explicitly for them years ago. The exact one I had been heavily contributing thousands to for years. Exactly while Daniel contributed absolutely nothing but excuses. Ethan nervously glanced right over my shoulder at the screen. "Mom, what exactly is happening with the bank?" I slowly looked right at him, a highly composed, razor-sharp smile smoothly spreading completely across my face. "Honey," I said incredibly quietly, "I am officially setting us entirely free." But basic financial freedom was honestly just the very beginning of the ultimate revenge. The very next morning, I woke up with an incredibly eerie calmness I absolutely hadn't felt in decades. It was the exact kind of dead calm that genuinely scares normal people. The specific kind that means something completely irreversible has already begun in motion. I quietly brewed strong coffee, popped open my laptop, and meticulously reread absolutely everything I had written the night before. It was incredibly sharp, surgically precise, and fiercely unapologetic. But true revenge, the absolute kind of real revenge that actually leaves a mark, absolutely isn't just about sending angry words. It is entirely about executing massive, undeniable impact. And I desperately wanted a massive impact that would violently echo straight through every single corner of my toxic family for decades to come. So, I aggressively began the final execution. First step, I instantly printed the official severance letter, legally signed it, digitally scanned it, and directly emailed heavy PDF copies to absolutely every single member of the extended family, specifically including the nosy extended relatives who lived multiple states away but absolutely loved consuming toxic family gossip significantly more than breathing actual oxygen. The subject line simply read, "Ethan and I are officially permanently done." Second step, I aggressively revoked my toxic parents' complete digital access to the massive shared emergency fund. Within mere minutes, all of their banking login credentials completely expired and locked them out entirely. The exact moment the final bank transfer processed, I actively felt something heavy in my chest violently loosen, exactly like a rusted steel door finally unlatching. Then came the ultimate step 3, the specific devastating move I had been explicitly saving for the absolute perfect moment to strike. Securely stored on my phone was a massive hidden file simply called the tribute video, an incredibly emotional compilation I had quietly and meticulously built entirely over the last few years. It visually showed Ethan patiently tutoring struggling younger kids entirely for free, Ethan proudly receiving massive state academic awards on stage, Ethan working grueling part-time jobs just to diligently save for his college tuition, Ethan happily visiting my ungrateful parents with warm homemade cookies, only to be completely ignored on camera, Ethan clapping incredibly proudly at Lena's basic dance recital, exactly while she absolutely didn't even bother to look in his general direction. I expertly stitched absolutely everything perfectly together into a highly cinematic 3-minute emotional sequence. I added incredibly soft, highly emotional piano music right underneath the footage. It was a massive, blinding spotlight focused directly on the exact child they constantly dismissed as nothing. A massive spotlight explicitly on the boy they actively tried to dim for years. At the absolute very end of the video, a single devastating line in stark white text slowly appeared on a pitch-black screen. "This is the exact child you aggressively said absolutely wasn't special." I immediately uploaded the massive file directly into the main family group chat with absolutely no caption whatsoever. Then I instantly blocked absolutely all of their phone numbers. Every single one of them. Exactly 5 minutes later, my phone began violently vibrating absolutely non-stop on the table. Countless unknown numbers were frantically calling, and blocked message previews were aggressively popping up right before immediately disappearing into the void. What the hell is this video? Harper, are you completely legally crazy? Take that video down off the internet right now. But I absolutely didn't even bother to look at the screen. Instead, I calmly closed my phone, gently set it aside, and turned right to Ethan with a huge smile. "Do you want to go out and celebrate today?" I happily asked him. His confused face instantly brightened up completely. "Really? Where are we going?" "Absolutely anywhere you want to go in the world," I replied. Exactly as we happily got into the car, a massive realization completely settled deep into my very bones. They absolutely weren't violently angry strictly because I publicly exposed their toxic behavior. They were aggressively furious because my decades of silent compliance had finally permanently ended, and I was absolutely nowhere near entirely finished with them yet. By the exact time Ethan and I finally finished eating a massive lunch at his absolute favorite little local diner, my blocked phone had aggressively blown up so violently with notifications it actively felt like it might actually combust right inside my purse. I happily ignored absolutely every single vibration until one specific call miraculously slipped right through the blocker from a highly familiar local landline number. I definitely recognized but absolutely hadn't saved. It was my furious father. Ethan nervously looked right at me across the booth. "You absolutely do not have to answer that call, Mom." "I completely know I don't," I calmly said, "but I actually really want to." I confidently stepped right outside the diner, actively letting the freezing cold air entirely settle all around me right before finally answering the line. The exact second the call connected, he violently erupted into the speaker. "Harper, what the actual hell have you done to us? Your mother is literally in hysterics and tears. Daniel is absolutely furious. You have completely humiliated this entire family in front of everyone." I calmly leaned back against the cold brick wall, blankly staring right up at the blue sky, actively feeling absolutely nothing but a perfectly steady, freezing calm. "I absolutely didn't humiliate anyone at all, Dad. I merely just publicly showed everyone the actual documented truth. That heavily edited video makes us look like absolute terrible monsters," he screamed into the phone. "You explicitly made yourselves look exactly like terrible monsters." I aggressively shot right back without missing a beat. "I merely just pressed the upload button." He violently sputtered in pure shock for a brief moment and then completely switched his manipulation tactics. He immediately deployed the exact same heavy guilt-tripping tone I had aggressively grown up constantly choking on my entire life. "You are violently breaking this entire family completely apart. And over what exactly? Some pathetic childish jealousy over a graduation? Ethan will easily get over it eventually." And exactly there it was. The absolute final, devastating sentence that completely revealed absolutely everything about their toxic mindset. There was absolutely no genuine apology. There was zero self-reflection, just pure, unadulterated dismissal of my son's pain. I heavily sighed into the phone. "This absolutely isn't about pathetic jealousy, Dad. This is entirely about exactly how you all have horrifically treated my amazing son his entire miserable life." "Stop massively exaggerating everything," he aggressively snapped back defensively. "Lena just naturally needs significantly more encouragement in life because she is highly delicate." "And Ethan?" I quietly asked him with razor-sharp precision. "What exactly did he ever desperately need that you ever actually gave him?" Absolute dead silence. A heavy silence so incredibly dense it finally screamed the absolute brutal truth to the entire universe. Nothing. They had aggressively given him absolutely nothing. Take down that damn video immediately, my father forcefully commanded, his voice turning to absolute ice, and completely undo that massive bank access thing right now. We are all going to sit down exactly tonight like actual adults and quietly fix this mess. I laughed incredibly softly, a deeply genuine, highly victorious laugh. No, you absolutely do not get your free money access back. You absolutely do not get any more pathetic explanations, and you most definitely do not ever get to see Ethan again. His arrogant voice finally violently cracked in pure panic. You are making a massive, catastrophic mistake, Harper. No, I firmly stated with absolute finality. I am officially permanently correcting one, and I confidently hung up the phone. Mere moments later, another frantic call aggressively came through. It was Daniel's. I instantly declined it. He furiously called right back again, and I declined it again. A third frantic time, declined. Then came a highly aggressive text message directly from him. The exact toxic message that literally made my breath completely still in my lungs. Fine. You really want massive consequences? Do not come pathetically crying to us when Lena magically gets the massive university scholarship you arrogantly thought Ethan would get. We have absolutely already talked to Mom's elite board connections. My God, they were absolutely still actively trying to aggressively sabotage my innocent son's entire future. I confidently walked right back inside the diner, my tight jaw completely locked, but my racing mind was now entirely crystal clear. They aggressively wanted a massive, total war. Well, they had absolutely just earned a nuclear one. Daniel's highly threatening message just kept aggressively replaying right in my mind exactly as I happily drove Ethan back home. Do not come crying when Lena gets the scholarship you thought Ethan would get. So that was officially their massive next power move. Absolutely no remorse, absolutely no reflection, just pure, vindictive revenge targeted directly at an innocent child. But they absolutely didn't know something incredibly important about the situation. Something massive that would completely become the absolute final, devastating twist of all twists in this entire saga. Exactly 1 month earlier, Ethan had incredibly quietly applied for a massive, highly prestigious national STEM scholarship. A genuinely massive federal one, the exact specific kind with elite blind judges who absolutely didn't care a single bit about toxic local family connections, or exactly who the local golden child supposedly was. It was a massive grant based entirely on pure, unadulterated academic merit, and Ethan had aggressively worked tirelessly to win it. I had personally witnessed the grueling late-night study sessions, the highly complex weekend engineering projects, the countless exhausting hours of raw effort, but my highly toxic family absolutely didn't know a single damn thing about any of it. And highly poetically, today of absolutely all days, a highly official email currently sat unread right in my personal inbox with the massive subject line, "Congratulations, Ethan win." I absolutely didn't tell him about it right away. I specifically waited until we safely got back inside our peaceful home. I wanted to actively make absolutely sure that this specific, massive moment of victory would completely drown out absolutely every single toxic insult he had ever endured from them. Exactly when we finally walked inside the house, he was absolutely still incredibly quiet, clearly still highly unsure of his actual place in the world right after surviving years of their aggressive emotional erosion. "Ethan," I gently said, softly pulling him right into the center of the living room, "please sit down right now. I desperately want to show you something amazing." He nervously sat down, looking highly confused but slightly hopeful. I confidently opened my laptop, the exact same machine I had just aggressively used to completely cut off our toxic family forever, and I slowly clicked open the unread email. "Read it right now," I proudly whispered. His tired eyes rapidly scanned the bright screen. They violently widened in shock and then widened even more in pure disbelief. His lips slightly parted, violently trembling with massive emotion. I actually got it," he breathlessly whispered into the quiet room. "Mom, I genuinely got the massive grant." "You absolutely didn't just get it," I proudly said, gently kneeling right in front of him. "You completely earned it entirely without their fake help. Entirely without absolutely anyone ever dimming your bright light. You did absolutely all of this." He violently covered his crying face with both of his shaking hands, exactly as massive. Happy tears rapidly slipped out between his fingers. The absolute best kind of tears, the deeply healing kind that washes away years of toxic pain. Mere minutes later, my cell phone aggressively buzzed again on the counter. This specific time, I confidently decided to answer it. It was my mother. She absolutely didn't sound violently angry anymore. She sounded incredibly small, highly pathetic, and completely desperate. Harper, your brother just frantically told us that Ethan apparently got something massive today. A huge national scholarship. Yes, he absolutely did, I simply stated with zero emotion. Oh well, do not you honestly think that the entire family should immediately celebrate this massive win together? Please bring Ethan right over to the house. We will make a massive dinner for him. And exactly there it was. The ultimate, pathetic shift. It absolutely wasn't stemming from genuine love. It was entirely stemming from pure, unadulterated fear. The massive fear of completely losing access to the highly successful child they constantly undervalued. The pathetic fear of completely missing out on the massive reflected glory of the success they absolutely never nurtured or supported. No, I stated incredibly plainly and firmly. You absolutely do not ever get to publicly celebrate what you entirely refuse to privately support. But we are blood family, she desperately whispered into the phone, her voice violently cracking. Real family absolutely doesn't treat innocent children exactly like disposable competition pieces, I aggressively replied with absolute venom. Real family actively lifts them up and fiercely protects them from harm. You completely fail to do either one. She went absolutely dead silent on the line, entirely suffocated by her own profound guilt. Then I confidently delivered the absolute final devastating line. The exact lethal sentence that permanently sealed absolutely everything forever. You desperately wanted Lena completely in the permanent spotlight for the rest of her life. Well, congratulations to you all. She can absolutely stay right there in the dark, because my Ethan will absolutely not be standing anywhere remotely near your pathetic stage ever again. I aggressively hung up the phone for the final time. Ethan slowly walked right over to me, hugged me incredibly tightly, and softly whispered into my shoulder, "Thank you so much for finally choosing me, Mom." I gently kissed his forehead. I absolutely always will. And, exactly as the beautiful sun slowly set right outside our living room window, casting a deeply warm and incredibly golden light across the room, I finally felt something profoundly peaceful that I absolutely hadn't felt in decades. If you loved hearing this toxic family get completely destroyed, do not forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel right now for more daily revenge stories.